Tonight on KQED Newsroom, we focus on the state of our climate in recognition of Earth Day. We'll talk with the head of California's Environmental Protection Agency, Blumenfeld, about how the state is addressing our most urgent problems. And why are we so often teetering on the edge of drought? Our climate reporters explain where our water comes from and how it's used. Plus, we go to Sonoma County to meet Karissa Kruse, who leads the region's sustainable vineyards effort, where wine, both red and white, is going green. Coming to you from KQED headquarters in San Francisco this Friday, April 22nd, 2022. Hello and welcome to the show. This is KQED Newsroom and I'm Priya David Clemens, and today is Earth Day. In recognition, we're focusing on climate and sustainability in the Golden State. There were sprinkles of rain in the Bay Area this week, but not even a few healthy downpours could reverse the current state of extreme drought we're in. California has a complex system of moving water throughout the state, using major aqueducts, dams, and reservoirs. Still, the supply of water never seems to quench our increasing thirst. Why is that? Several of our reporters and graphic artists teamed up to find the answers.
California has one of the most hydrologically altered landscapes in the world. Through extensive engineering projects, we've turned an arid terrain into a uniquely productive state. But the reality remains, there never seems to be enough water. Over the past century, 5 intense droughts have slammed California. The last one ended in 2019, and in 2021, we entered another. So why do we always seem to be in or on the brink of drought? The answer lies in where and how California gets its water. There are two main sources of H2O, surface water like rain and snow, and groundwater. The state holds its breath every winter, hoping for a rainy season to replenish its supplies. Moisture-rich atmospheric rivers, or thick bands of water vapor that bring plentiful showers, are essential sources of hydration. Too few and we're mired in drought. Too many, though, and we're flooded. Precipitation whiplash, or sudden shifts from very dry to very wet conditions, can create disastrous mudslides. This is a very real risk, especially given that half of Southern California's rain can fall in less than 40 hours. Then there's snow, which conveniently falls in solid form across the Sierras. Snow supplies about 30% of California's water once it melts. But snow is as variable as rain. A light season spells a small snowpack and a snow drought, not to mention a bad ski season. And premature melting means the snow won't be there later in the year when we need it. Beneath the surface, California's aquifers, big pockets of rock, hold the state's groundwater supply. That water is pumped up through wells, and it makes up around 40% of California's annual water usage. However, it's a finite source. Drilling deeper and deeper, a mostly unregulated practice that has only recently seen some controls, has awful geologic consequences. With each drop of water drawn out, the ground sinks and compacts, a process known as subsidence, which has caused entire cities to sink in the Central Valley. How much water you have steady access to depends on where you are in the state. Half of our developed water supply, or water that can be managed and guided by us, doesn't go straight into our faucets. It instead flows through streams, rivers, and canals, where it does what water does when it's in its natural environment, helping plants grow, serving as habitat for fish and fowl, and hydrating ecosystems before evaporating back into the water cycle or flowing into the ocean. Of the other half, 80% waters acres of almonds, grapes, and other California crops, and around 20% travels to cities for human use. About 3/4 of our rain and snow falls in Northern California, and a significant amount goes straight back into the environment because it falls in remote, less densely populated areas. And of course, urban areas like the San Francisco Bay Area take their share. But a lot of water demand comes from the more populated, much drier Southern California. This geographic problem is why we've invested in massive water infrastructure. California's water system tries to organize the finite storage of our aquifers and the shrinking seasonal capacity of our snowpack to control the fate of our hydration. The California State Water Project, which spans the entire state, began operation in 1960 and is the largest water transfer system in the world. It includes the 444-mile-long California aqueduct and other canals and waterways, as well as 1,500 reservoirs. The project transfers 650 million gallons of water daily across the state and has a total capacity in wet years of almost 2 trillion gallons. But even siphoning northern water isn't enough to quench SoCal's thirst. There's another federally managed water schlepping enterprise called the Central Valley Project. And we even get water from out of state through the Colorado River Aqueduct. All of this water management has allowed California to water acres of crops, support huge metropolises, and nurture innovative industries. But one reason we feel like we're in perpetual drought is that our system is finally balanced. All of California's growth and success has huge hydration needs, and any decrease in water supply is felt keenly. It could mean less agriculture, fewer green lawns, and less of everything we become accustomed to. California is drinking borrowed water, and maybe growing on borrowed time. As the climate emergency continues, drought will continue to be a constant threat. This story was reported and produced by Katherine Shok and directed and animated by Kelly Heigert with graphic design by Rebecca Cow. I'm Ezra David Romero for KQED Newsroom.
Our water collection and delivery systems in California are many decades old. Climate change has changed our precipitation patterns, so we now get rain in bigger, less frequent storms, which means we'll need to update our infrastructure to capture that heavier stormwater runoff. But that's not the only change that's needed. Earlier this month, the state released a 6-part report updating the many impacts of climate change and the difficult consequences that Californians will experience. Here to talk about the state's latest efforts to combat climate change is California's Secretary for Environmental Protection, Jared Blumenfeld. Secretary Blumenfeld, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Priya, and happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth
April 22nd.
Day.
Yeah.
And where are you right now?
I'm in the Eastern Sierra on my way to Mono Lake, which is one of those places affected by what you said at the top of the story. And yeah, it's a beautiful day after a storm. And to your point, I drove through the snow last night to get here. No one thought it would be snowing in April. We thought the precipitation had ended. So yeah, we're getting weird, wacky weather, extreme weather because of climate change. And no better place to find the evidence of that than California on Earth.
Well, you're the top brass here in California when it comes to the environment. How would you say we're doing? What grade would you give our efforts to protect Mother Earth?
So when we think about the environment, often, Priya, we kind of bring in politics and all the things about how much we can do. You know, I'm feeling kind of both positive and frustrated. The pace of change is not meeting the environmental needs of the planet. So California is being battered by climate change, and we're putting literally billions of dollars and all the effort we can to try and combat that and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and all those other things. But I'd give us a B+ at best at the moment, because even with all that effort, things are not moving in the right direction quick enough.
There certainly are critics that we're not moving fast enough. Let's talk about how to best invest our resources to address specifically drought first. Not only the one we're in now, but the droughts that are expected to come in the future. You know, you talked about how there's more snow right now than expected, and there are a lot of plans for new ways to capture more storm water runoff, of building sort of pricey desalination plants, and of doing more to recycle our wastewater. What are the infrastructure projects that you think are most important for California to get done right away?
So just at the top, Priya, really important to remember that about 1 million Californians today don't have access to safe and affordable drinking water. So they're communities mainly in the Central Valley, in the Coachella Valley, in Imperial Valley, who just don't have access to water that meets standards or that's affordable. They're paying more for their drinking water right now, today, even without the drought, even without climate change. And so big focus on equity, making sure that all Californians have access to what we think of every day, being able to turn that shower on and take water without thinking about the pollution. In terms of the big projects, we got to use water more efficiently. So there's still more that we can do. Unbelievably, I'm going to Mono Lake today. Mono Lake was really saved by people in LA putting in low flow toilets. Simple as that. But there are a lot of us that can do more. Things like making sure that we're not watering our lawns just after it rains, like today. Makes no point. Turn your sprinkler off. People are doing things still like washing their cars when they don't need to. So there's all kinds of things that we can do to save water. And then there are big projects that you spoke to, like water recycling. How can we use water to get it most out of it more and more? So we shouldn't really be watering our parks and golf courses with water that we can drink. There's recycled water that can be used for all those applications. So the state of California is putting billions and billions of dollars with the Biden administration. The infrastructure bill that passed is helping put money back into California communities to build that infrastructure. So it's not only good for the environment, but it also creates good paying jobs, lasting operational and maintenance positions.
Well, let's turn from water to the other big concern in the state right now in terms of climate change, that's wildfire. 2 years ago, the state launched the California Vegetation Treatment Program to clear trees and reduce fire risk. But a recent investigation by Cap Radio and the California Newsroom found that not a single project has been completed since the launch. The State Board of Forestry and Fire Protection projected that 45,000 acres would be cleared in just the first year alone. So what happened here?
So there's lots of, I think, important work going on, Priya, as it relates to changing the dynamic around fire. When we think about the history of fire management in the state of California, basically it was let's leave the forest alone. And it actually kind of relates back to Earth Day. We had this, I think, very naive view of wilderness as something you leave alone and it's going to take care of itself. When in fact, especially here on Earth Day, we need to recognize that we've had stewards of this land for thousands of years. The native peoples of California have been managing our forests, our chaparral. And so the goal really is to make sure we get back into a rhythm of managing the forest so there's not all this dense understory that ends up burning. And many of those projects are going forward. I've been out and seen them firsthand. So I want to encourage people to understand that a huge amount is happening. It's a big paradigm shift in how we manage fires.
California has led the nation in pushing for the use of electric vehicles and our regulations relating to electric vehicles. And currently, the plan is to stop selling gas-powered vehicles by 2035. And there is a set of push and pulls here. Car companies are saying they can't make the change by then. Advocates are saying that the changes are coming too slowly. So what needs to be done to realistically get us there?
So about 900 cars today sold in California are electric vehicles. We're now beyond 1 million vehicles. More than half of all the electric vehicles sold in the United States sold in California. So we're doing a lot. Gavin Newsom, the governor, put $6 billion, which is now potentially increasing in the budget to help this transition, which is everything from electric vehicle charging stations to electrifying trucks and school buses. So it's an all of the above strategy, but the reason we need to attack it so fiercely, Priya, is because 50% of California's greenhouse gas emissions that are polluting and causing this extreme weather, 50% of those emissions come from the transportation sector. So we need to do this quickly. We were told when we set this goal of 2035, which still is a ways away, that we were crazy. This is way too swift a change. And so the car companies, I think, are coming on board. You see everyone from Ford, the model F-150 pickup truck will be on sale soon, the Chevy Bolt. This is going mainstream. And most importantly, making the switch right now will save you a huge amount at the pump. So this is the wave of the future. It's happening in California first, and we need to help make sure that everyone in California, no matter what your income level, can get into an electric vehicle.
Well, so last, let's turn to wind and solar. Perennial favorites in the discussion of a more environmentally friendly future. How quickly are those alternatives coming online, and what are the obstacles?
The price of renewable energy has gone down in terms of installing it just incredibly. So in the last 20 years, wind and solar have gone down between 80 and 90%, Priya. So it's now cheaper to put in solar than it is coal or gas. And so that's made a massive difference. We just got clearance from the Biden administration to put offshore wind, the big turbines. You won't be able to see them, but they'll be powering the state and really helping us move towards the clean energy future. So issues that still remain are all kinds of amazing obstacles from permitting and processes that take years and years sometimes to get a solar field or array in, or a wind turbine, all the way through kind of global trade issues that are now impacting how we can put solar in. So, you know, we often think that the polluters should be stopped and the good projects should go forward. Sometimes it's, you know, big frustration that I think many of us have is how long it takes to get some of these really important renewable energy projects in the ground.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, Secretary Jared Blumenfeld, head of the California Department of Environmental Protection. The lion's share of the water we use in the state goes to agriculture. Most of that is sent to large farms, but some flows to California vineyards. Sonoma County, known around the world for its fine wines, has also become a leader in sustainable agriculture. 99% of the county's wine grapes have been certified as grown under sustainable practices through an innovative program launched by Karissa Kruse, president of the Sonoma County Winegrowers Association. We recently drove up to Sonoma to meet Karissa and see those sustainability measures in practice on an active vineyard.
Now we've been on the sustainability mission since 2014, and who knew how relevant our timing would be, as we now can't escape a conversation about climate crisis and how agriculture can play really a unique role in that.
Yeah.
So we're walking through cover crop,
which is this
so
here.
Right, so we have beans, bell beans and vetch. Often there's mustard that's used, and this is a natural way to put nutrients back into the soil. But it's a really good erosion protection as well.
So I'm also noticing these tubes coming along here. This is drip irrigation.
It is, and so, I mean, now you see this in almost all the vineyards. This was sort of a technology or innovation change happened decades ago, but really there's just small emitters. They slowly drip the water. It's either going directly to support the vine, or it's going in to recharge the aquifer. So in that way, there's no water waste happening. It's either providing growth or being saved.
What was the spark, the impetus that made Sonoma County decide to embark on the sustainability program in the first place back in 2014?
Yeah, our farmers were recognizing the world was changing, and we were getting new technology available to us. In 2014, when we made our commitment, we were in a drought situation, much like we are now. And so we were starting to see more extremes in our weather, and starting to really think about our workforce, so social sustainability, and all those things were kind of moving behind the scenes. And it was like, well, what if we were to look at all of those things kind of in together, holistically? Farming across California deals a lot with, you know, water issues. It deals with climate. It deals with the same sort of labor force. And so we committed to doing one of those programs and putting it under a sustainable Sonoma County umbrella.
So you implemented this goal in 2014 to become completely sustainable,
Yes.
and 5 years later you achieved it.
We did. Yes, which is amazing. And so the way the program works is the farmers do a self-assessment of all of these practices they evaluate themselves on. And then there's actually a third-party auditor that comes out to the ranch. They say, okay, we're going to walk your ranch, we're going to look at your documentation, we're going to see all of these practices and validate that you're doing what you say you're going to do. And then every year the farmers have to write a plan to improve in some way, to make an investment back in being more sustainable.
So in addition to the sustainability measures we saw today when we were walking around,
Right.
what else does this program entail?
There's actually 44 different practices that touch water, and not just conservation, but water quality, water use. There's different practices around social sustainability. So how are you implementing safety measures on your vineyard? Are you giving back to the community? Do you sit on a local board? Do you donate? What are you doing to be part of the Sonoma County community? And then there's a lot of business pieces of it. Like, I mean, at the end of the year, if you don't have a farm, you're not in business the next year, who cares if you're sustainable in any of your practices, right? That economic viability is critical.
Okay, so most of the work is in the field in terms of sustainability, but not all of it.
Absolutely, so we are super excited. I'm about to show you one of the first Ford Pro charging stations in the world.
Oh.
Right here. So this is part of our collaboration with Ford Pro to really think about how we help our farmers go electric on their ranches. So electric vans, charging stations, trucks, and fleet management. So how do they really optimize their fleets and lower their idling time, release less greenhouse gases?
Let's talk about some of the specific challenges that we're facing because of climate change.
Absolutely.
Wildfires are one. You yourself lost your home in 2017 in the Tubbs fire. So for you and for many who are here, it's very personal.
It's extremely personal. When it literally lands in your backyard, or in my case, literally my backyard, and impacted by the Tubbs fire and lost my home, you realize like, you got to start now. Like, it's already probably too late for some of what we could have been doing for the last 50 years, last 100 years. So when it comes to wildfires specifically, there's a number of things our farmers are doing. So we call it like hardscaping. So it's really doing vegetation management. It's removing sort of brush that can really be a fuel for the fires. It's thinking about materials that are used in fencing. We've been doing a number of wildfire preparedness and safety classes just to teach people to think about how you stay safe, thinking about routes in and out of our community to make sure that you're never in a situation where you can't make it to safety.
Another big issue that we have here in California is the lack of water. We're going into our third year of a drought, very significant drought. How's that impacting the land right now?
Yeah, so one thing that's interesting is one way we're super lucky is that wine grapes being our primary sort of agriculture here in Sonoma County, they're incredibly water efficient crop. So they don't use a lot of water, and in fact, over time, if you irrigate less and less, the vines respond to that. And so you're sort of training vineyards to be less dependent on irrigation. So historically, when we asked 10, 15 years ago, what would you be doing? You might water an entire vineyard at once. Now they're saying, the Chardonnay in this block, that's this clone, needs exactly this much water, and there's no waste because it's going right back in to recharge the aquifer. So we're getting really, I would say, precision irrigation. We're becoming really more precise in our farming.
So what's this little red guy?
Yeah, so this doesn't look like much, but this is actually a neutron probe. So it helps our farmers really understand how much moisture is in the soil.
Did you say a neutron probe?
Yes, I know. That's not words that roll off the tongue.
I feel like we're bringing astrophysics into this.
I know, totally. And there is a lot of, I think people would be surprised how much technology and data our farmers use. They actually love data. They love farming, they love their tractors and their trucks, but they love data, and it's something like this.
So what data does that provide?
So it actually it measures the moisture in the soil, and so then they can determine irrigation practices. So it really helps them not waste a single drop of water.
So you've been putting all of these sustainability measures into place. Do you have any ways to quantify the benefit of what you're doing?
Yeah, we actually looked at different sort of scenarios of practices on the 20 different pilot ranches. And we were able to measure how much CO2 those scenarios were sort of sequestering in the ground, or if we were eliminating any of the greenhouse gas emissions. And in just 1 year, just those 20 pilot ranches, we're able to lower CO2 emissions by the equivalent of almost 5.4 million miles driven by a car.
So you've planted all these baby redwoods along the side of the field.
Yeah, a lot of our farmers are really looking at ways that they can do even more to sequester carbon on their ranches, take kind of advantage of the entire landscape. And so you'll see there's a whole row of redwood trees here. They're quite young now, but they're already, as their roots go into the ground, they're already starting to do their job as being little fighters in the global climate crisis. They're at battle right now.
And explain what that means.
When you have growing objects, they're actually able to put carbon back into the soil. So if you're not moving that soil, it stays in there. And so you're helping sort of reduce and pull down
out of the atmosphere
into the earth.
Karissa, wine's a luxury item. So why does this matter?
These farmers who have declared they're farmers, first and foremost, today they're farming wine grapes. Down the road, it might be something else. A lot of these farmers have seen multiple diversity in their crops since their families have been farming. Maybe not them, but they're, the generation before them. So that's about preserving agriculture. So I think, we should all be asking questions about how everything is, created and produced. I think that's where we're at now, and I think that's an important question. So why not a luxury good? Maybe even more importantly, a luxury good. I think we have a huge responsibility.
The struggles that we face with climate change often feel so heavy.
Yeah.
And it makes us truly consider the issues that we're dealing as existential threats, right? So when we feel so heavy about climate change, it does seem there's something in this program that offers hope.
Absolutely. When you realize you can start locally, and you probably have to start locally, and it's going to be me making a difference in what I do. It's going to be our farmers making a difference. That's one small thing, but that's a win. And I think if you start to add up all the small things, then you get the big win. And so I think that's the hope, is that, you know, whenever you feel overwhelmed, know there's a group of farmers here, this really small place in California, that are doing their best every day and thinking about it every day, about how they can do better. And I think if we all start to adopt that mentality, we're going to get on our way. We're going to be on the journey.
This week's Something Beautiful is a visit to a serene garden in the East Bay. The Heigert Japanese gardens follow traditional design principles while using California native stone and plants to create its manicured paths and sculpted trees. Such refreshing and restorative images of nature. That's the end of our show for tonight. You can find KQED Newsroom online or on Twitter, or email us at knr@kqed.org. And you can reach me on social media at Priya D. Clemens. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you right back here next Friday night. Have a great weekend.